Harie Robinson Jr. live at ATL Live Well here with my brother Jamal Lewis for the first episode of the SHŌ Podcast. How you doing, brother?
Man, I'm good. I can't complain. Just making it happen.
Correct.
That's about it. Glad we got a chance to get this going, finally.
Finally. What we gonna do, J. Lou, is kind of give them a breakdown of SHŌCASE Brands. And since being the founder of SHŌCASE and this being an idea, a baby of yours, previously coming to fruition now, just give them a breakdown of what SHŌCASE Brands is. What are we doing? What have we been doing?
Well, SHŌCASE Brands really started, from an idea around youth sports, and mainly because my son's playing, high school football, and just seeing the dynamics in high school and college sports nowadays, and just what's going on. Really just wanted to produce a product, and with NIL and everything going on, just
Correct.
For him, just produce a product that he can showcase while he's going to camps and tournaments and 7-on-7s and all this type of stuff, because the audience is there. Just going to these camps and just going to these things, you see the amount of kids and parents that are out here at these venues that are really just trying to get that exposure.
Correct.
So, starting with the shoe bag,
Indeed.
which came about because of some of your resources, your relationships, and in your background in branding and also, sourcing as well, and me being an entrepreneur, the idea is, hey, look, let's create a product and let's create a shoe bag, just because of the culture. You pay $300, $400 for a pair of cleats nowadays, even more. And you can't even find them. You got to go to StockX to try to find some nice cleats. You know what I'm saying? Or you gonna wear what everybody else wearing at Dick's. But just the culture nowadays, and just the entertainment, the social environment now, just really triggered me into saying, look, let's get into this game, and let's start off with the bag and apparel and appeasing to these kids and what they're into and everything else. And then that's just kind of, I think, where it launched. But outside of that, it's more of really just trying to help, these kids put the best product on the field, right?
Indeed.
And, SHŌCASE, we got apparel, we have all the stuff. That's what these kids are into. But at the same time, I think the ultimate goal is to get exposure.
Indeed.
And to get noticed. And in order to do that, you got to get better. And I think what we've created here, starting with apparel, we've morphed over into more, I'm sure we'll get into it, in just how to help these kids and these parents more knowledgeable on, what to expect, what they need to know. And so they're just not signing up for anything and going for anything because, the stakes are high now. Indeed. In high school sports and also college sports. So I think that what we're bringing at SHŌCASE is something of value for a family that's really trying to get their kids exposed, and also to help them compete at a high level.
Exactly. And I like the fact that you spoke about putting the best product on the field, and that's what I feel people may not realize just from looking at social media, our social media pages, and different interviews you've done, different things I've done. But that's the goal, not just the product, but to have other brand extension components that can help them spiritually, mentally, talent-wise, their gifts, even what we're doing, conversing on the microphone.
Yeah, and I think that, we started with the brand and we wanted to expose the brand, right?
Indeed.
And we ended up doing a showcase. We ended up doing a showcase.
That was a 5-year projection, wasn't it?
The 1v1 showcase, I think we had probably 60 days to get ready for it. But invite only, deal, 1v1, so that, kids can get that exposure and really show their talent, versus a 7-on-7 or just going to a camp.
Correct.
And that's why it was invite only. This was the best of the best. And I think from that, you started to see kind of how you can add value to these kids, and
Indeed.
how the parents are reaching out to us now and email and you know, hey, you know, asking questions about this, that, and the other. And I think that, you know, with the wealth of resources that I have, that you have, that our, you know, our first connections have, you know, being able to tap into that, you know, we can help a lot of these parents, you know, navigate the recruiting system and just, you know, accomplish what they're trying to accomplish without wasting a bunch of money and wasting a bunch of time. So I think, you know, what we're getting into now is, you know, now we got SHŌCASE Performance, you know, because these kids are going to camps, you know, they're going to tournaments or whatever. They got to run a 40, they got to do a agility test and stuff like that. But a lot of these kids not prepared for that. So with SHŌCASE Performance and the app that we will be dropping pretty soon, it helps that kid to get that testing and also get the fix on what they need to work on in order to get better. So when they do go to these showcases, they do go to these camps, they do go to these tournaments, they really are putting their best self out there on the field so that it can be seen by, you know, the audience is there. And also, you know, with social media and cameras and everything else nowadays, you know,
don't take much.
It's being captured. So they're able to use that. So that's where we're going with nutrition as well, you know, with SHŌCASE Nutrition. Just seeing these kids, you know, having to develop, you know, they need to put on weight. Some of them need to lose weight. We get a lot of questions about that. So that's why we're developing SHŌCASE Nutrition with supplements, you know, coming out pretty soon.
Indeed.
Right?
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
that's going to be real strong.
It's going to be big for us or whatever, but also SHŌCASE Media. I think, you know, you're the one that kind of expounded on this because you saw how just engaging with the kids for SHŌCASE. Like, you know, a lot of these kids don't have content. A lot of these kids don't have, you know, footage that can be pulled, you know, on their behalf to help showcase them outside of their own, you know. So with SHŌCASE Media, help these kids with storytelling, putting together the picture of and the visual of who they are, where they come from, what they're about, and being able to, you know, us able to ask those questions of them so that they can, you know, display themselves in a good light. And so that, you know, because, you know, when you was being recruited, man, that coach probably went to your barbershop.
Definitely.
That coach probably went to the grocery store where your mom shop at. You know, because
in person.
Because they want to know, hey, what type of kids is this?
How you
Especially
living?
when they finna invest in your future.
Indeed.
And nowadays, they putting money in your pocket now, so it's not later on. So they want to know, you know, what am I getting? And I think that what we're doing with our ecosystem and where we're going with this, I think this is going to be it is going to be a good add-on and a good value add to these kids and the parents, you know, on their journey to where they're trying to go.
Yeah, and that's a key ingredient that you spoke about with the media component, because what we're doing with SHŌ Podcast, we've talked about this a couple of times, but it's going to give the kids a better opportunity to be on the mic. Not saying they don't know how to speak and communicate, but this is just like repetitive as we get to different athletes, whether it's virtual or here at the studio. It's going to be interaction. They're getting real-time experience from your experience, football journey and personal journey, my football experience, personal journey. And I really think for the parents that didn't really have an athletic background or they weren't around sports, it's a lot of value in tuning in to SHŌ Podcast, because we're going to be talking about all aspects of the game, both on and off the field.
Right. Yeah. And really letting them show themselves and, you know, making them comfortable and be them. And I think that's going to help them a lot, you know, going forward with, like I said, with their journey and where they're going. So, you know, SHŌCASE, you know, that's what we're about, SHŌCASE. You know, not only are you showcasing your shoes and your cleats or whatever when you show up to show out and do what you got to do. And the bag, you know, it's about, you know, and the whole thought process behind the bag, or just a shoe bag, period. You know, I went to training, you know, with my son, and we go out to these, you know, fields and everything else, and all the kids got their backpack. They got their cleats in their backpack. They got their shirts and their protein bars. They got everything in this backpack. 2-day-old shirts, you know, week-old shirts too.
Funkadelic.
Yeah, exactly. So with this, you know, it's more of, hey, pack your cleats, your trainers, whatever you need for that particular training session or whatever, your gloves, your wristbands, your accessories, your deodorant, what you need in order to go out and focus on, hey, getting better.
Correct.
And that's where, I think this first piece and that bag, the SHŌCASE bag actually came to light,
Indeed.
and that's who it's for. It's for that kid that's putting in the grind, putting in the work, and, and don't need all the clutter. You know what I'm saying? And know what their mission is and know what they're trying to accomplish. And that's why, I think we came up with this actual product. And
Exactly.
It's been going good. And I think, even from the SHŌCASE, we got, some good players, some good, I think we call them SHŌCASE Performance.
Yep, top
SHŌCASE Elite players.
Indeed.
Indeed. Like the Eastern Royals, the Braylon Clayers, Maddox Davis, you got in Carrollton.
Yeah, D-Mac, Daryl McFadden, and Dash Mighton.
Yeah, right. So,
Braden Doss.
And these are kids that, man, they're awesome. They're awesome. They got great talent. But at the same time, with their affiliation with SHŌCASE, we can add value to them from a branding standpoint, just helping promote them from that standpoint, and just using the ecosystem and the tools that we're providing in order to help them accelerate and do what we aim to do, and that's put the best product on the field.
Exactly, and the key component and ingredient you said too with development is what people will realize over time, that it's more than just athletic development. It's business development. It's helping the kids figure out how to build their own brands. Because me and you talked about this several times. Football is a collision sport, not a contact sport, right?
Right.
And having a business running simultaneously while you playing the game and earning an outside revenue.
Yeah.
I don't know if a lot of kids think about it. It's cool if somebody comes up to you and offers you, okay, wear my clothes, we're going to give you a QR code, this, that, and the other. That's cool. But actually having your own Eastern Royal brand, Braylon brand, Ox brand, Lewis brand, Mighton brand, McFadden, that's the goal. That's what they're going to get here.
You're really trying to target your audience, right? Everybody got an audience. You know what I'm saying? If you from, I grew up in Adamsville, right? In Adamsville, you know what? People in Adamsville knew me. But as I got better and started being in the papers and everything else, guess what? Now you got the city of Atlanta knows you. Then you got the state of Georgia knows you. Then now you get recruited by this school and that school or whatever. Now you got, now nationally, people know who you are. So, with that comes an audience, so why not create a monetization component where you can have your own brand? And it don't have to be clothes. It can be headphones.
It can be these wristbands.
It can be wristbands. It can be hair ties. It can be whatever you're into. Why not, dabble in it and produce it? And at the same time, I think this is something for the parents, right? The parents, your child is the business.
Period.
And any business needs a board and needs, people to help it run, right? And
Structure.
Create that foundation. So, the parents, this is where the parents got to get more involved in helping accelerate and help build that brand and that business.
Indeed.
Because, with me as a player, I needed to focus on training. I need to focus on working out and getting better, what the tools I need in order to go out here and put the best product on the field so that my value constantly goes up over time. And I think that that's something that needs to be done. I think, a lot of kids need to be enlightened to that, hey, look, this is what's going on, and this is how you need to really take advantage of this. And I think with the SHŌCASE platform, we're able to do that.
Definitely, from every angle, sports, media, brand development, business development, the whole nine. And I think some other key components of SHŌCASE. And see, I think a lot of people, when they look at how we're doing this and when they look at the social media content, they may think we're on the path of management agency type deal. No, that's not the goal with SHŌCASE. We have so many resources that it may appear that way.
Yeah.
But we're putting them in position, like we took some of our SHŌCASE elite athletes to Georgia Tech. We're going to take them to University of Tennessee. We're going to take them to University of Memphis. We got so many resources in NCAA D1 across the nation. The goal is to expose these kids, and some of these kids get overlooked.
Yeah, they do.
You know,
and you got to get them in front of these folks. You
correct.
know, like you took kids down to Georgia Tech. A lot of these kids came from our SHŌCASE, and the kids that we call them SHŌCASE kids now.
Correct.
Because we're trying to get them on board and introduce them to the right people and put them in front of some of these coaches so that they can actually see them. But yeah, it's just one of them things where. You know, like we said, you know, we want them to be the best. We want to be able to offer this platform so that they can hone in on their skills and everything else. And it's just certain things that the parents might not know that we know from, hey, look, you know, you playing college football, you being recruited, having an injury. I went on to play college football, had injury, end up getting drafted, going to the pros, having injury, adversity hits or whatever. But what are you going to do, and how are you going to address that? Because it's just a hurdle, it's just a hiccup. Now it's trying to just hone in and get back right, get back on the field. But a lot of people don't know. I still got players that's in the NFL right now, or agents that call that say, hey, look, well, we need somebody to help with this. Or do you have somebody a soft tissue guy, or do you have somebody in Atlanta or somewhere else or whatever, because they're trying to get them guys on the field. I think that, you know, with our platform, you know, we're pretty much an agency's dream.
Indeed.
Because what we're doing is helping that player get better and put the best product on the field.
Indeed.
So that's what agencies should be doing.
Correct.
But at the same time, you know, they have certain things and agendas and things that they trying to accomplish, whatever, in recruiting other players and trying to get players signed and this, that, and the other. But, you know, I think, you know, at the end of the day, you know, by the time we get this thing really rolling in you know, 18 to 24 months, you know, a SHŌCASE player is going to be a player that you want to have as a client, or a player, or somebody you want to recruit.
Exactly.
Because of how we're, you know, trying to mold and help offer, you know, our resources to these parents and kids.
Exactly. You know, it's another thing I'm going to run back, but I think with the SHŌCASE Performance app coming up, what's going to differentiate us from other apps is what you spoke on, is focusing. The app will capture their weak points.
Yeah.
You know, and 10 times out of 10 before this SHŌCASE Performance app, either the coach or the trainer was going to have to physically be there to see where they need to work on their starting, coming out at the start point, midway, and end speed.
Yeah.
That app is just going to capture it. And you got the videos to go with it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And with the app, you know, thanks to Game Speed and XPE, you know, offering to let us, you know, really be the first out with this application, and really being able to show the weaknesses in your testing. So, you know, where are you lacking? And that's what a lot of these kids need to understand. You know, when you go to work out and train, it's just not all about going to work out with your position-specific trainer.
Correct.
Like, you need to be working on your speed. You need to be working on how to close the gap. Football is a game of inches. You know, a lot of these sports is about separation. How can you separate, and how can you be quicker, faster? And a lot of that comes with training, and you have to be able to hone in on those weaknesses. So when you're watching film, or like with the app, when you test, it's going to show you where you're weak at in your 40. It's going to show you where you're weak at in that vertical, whether it's explosion, whether it's turnover, what area you need to go work on, and give you those videos so you can either work on them at home, or you take them to your trainer that you have and have him help you work on it. You know, just dealing with my son, I just know that, you know, and it's different than when we was coming up, because, you know, my son, Jazz probably had 3 or 4 different trainers.
Correct. Rotation.
At 16 years old, he got, you know, a speed and agility guy, maybe 1 or 2. He got a wide receiver trainer. He got a lifting guy. You know, he got recovery. He got all of this stuff, you know what I mean, to help him perform and be the best that he can be. But we didn't have that.
Man,
so
put some ice on
so
it.
yeah, so now it's like, hey, you got to work on those weaknesses and self-evaluate yourself. And that's what I think the SHŌCASE Performance app brings is self-evaluation, so that you can see progress, you can see where you're off and where you need to get better, and go out and actually execute.
Indeed. And, that's good that you spoke about Jazz with having the different trainers from agility to stretch to therapy to strength conditioning. And we've talked about this several times, and I think parents need to know that, yeah, it may sound like a lot of money, but we were talking about it. There's always YouTube University.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So don't let the financial aspect of it stop you from making sure that your kid has the best available mindset and resources. Hey, and it's just another thing you got to study. You got to work. It's never easy. You always got to grind through it.
Right. A lot of parents, on Thanksgiving, they chime in to YouTube to try to learn how to make that special macaroni and cheese, make that right sweet potato pie.
Correct.
Guess what? That your son need these ladder drills.
Exactly.
So type in there ladder drills, and guess what? A bunch gonna pop up.
Indeed.
That you can do in the backyard. So it is a difference in finances and things of that nature, and guess what though? You gotta have that. So in order to compete nowadays, you got to have these trainers. You have to have these workouts. So if you can't afford that, like you said, YouTube is there. A lot of these trainers giving this stuff away for free.
Correct.
So you can chime in and get these same workouts
virtual
that somebody's going into a gym or going personally and doing with one-on-ones. But you can go in and do them. There's a lot of trainers that got group sessions, My brother, John, he got group sessions. DSA, they got group sessions.
Indeed.
So you don't have to get one-on-one now. I don't even pay for one-on-one a lot, but we're going to do some group sessions where we still get that same work and get that attention to detail so you can go out and execute.
That's a very good point with the group sessions, because even when my son was playing ball, we worked with your brother, Energy Fitness of America, Jamal Lewis, and he had a good group. So with them having them group sessions, the financial aspect is not as bad as you think when you're doing the group sessions.
No, and the competition, you're going to compete.
Exactly.
You're going to be competing with somebody that's your age, on your level, or playing your position or not. You're going to be able to compete, So having those group sessions really aren't all the way bad. But, only time, those one-on-ones are good if there's something that you really need to hone in on. You need to work on some good attention to detail to something that you are missing. But on a regular routine, like we get into summertime now. Summertime, guess what? You need to have a routine. You need to be ready to go. You need to be ready to get into it. What is your routine? Do you have a plan in place? Have you went and self-evaluated yourself and watched your spring film? We just finished with spring football, right? And a lot of these teams don't have spring football. Some of them just have spring workouts, but they don't play a game or whatever. But at the same time, you need to go back and self-evaluate yourself on these games and then build your plan around that. What didn't I do last year that I need to get better at? What is coach saying, about me? What's the scouting report on me? And go work on those weaknesses so that, when you show up next year, or you show up for summer ball or whatever, coach goes, hey, he's sharp. He's gotten better. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things I did. When I was working out and training, we didn't train on my strengths. We trained on the weaknesses. Exactly. If I had 2 hours to train, 80% of that was going to be on my weaknesses. And you know what? And I played 10 years. I averaged 1,000 yards a season. And one of the things that kept me where I was at and holding a starting job for 10 years was the fact that every time I showed up better.
Correct.
Because whatever my weakness was that Ozzie Newsome might have saw and the coaches might have saw when I showed up for OTAs or vet camp, guess what? That was going to be fixed.
Correct.
That was going to be fixed.
Yeah, you grinding.
Yeah, and they're going to say, hey,
Yeah.
Now, guess what? I take that doubt out your mind because I'm getting better.
Exactly.
I'm getting better, and that's what a lot of these kids need to understand. Like, that's what coaches want to see. They like to see progress. You know, they like to see you getting better. You know, they like to see that work ethic that you putting in or whatever, and that's what take you the long haul.
And that's a very good point, and the kids needed to hear that, because averaging 1,000 yards per season in the NFL, that's a different level of discipline.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it's middle school, youth sports, high school, college, it requires that same type of discipline from beginning until the end of your time.
Yeah.
There's no time for, extracurricular, even though we know we're going to get in extracurricular, but that discipline has to stay a whole lot higher than the fun stuff.
Yeah, that's what separate the good ones from the great ones, right?
Correct.
The good ones from the great ones, the great ones, guess what? They're going to do things right consistently. Mm-hmm. And that's why they're on the field, because they can be trusted.
Exactly.
The ones that's just good, you know what? They're going to do things right.
Just enough.
They're going to get done with practice. And they talent is great. They're doing good or whatever. People patting them on the back and this, that, and the other. But at the same time, you know what, man? You got to go out there and hone in and really show. Really, look, this is what it's about, and this is what I'm about. And I'm trying to get better. I want to be better, and mentally be focused and in tune to what's going on, so you can consistently do it right. Indeed. And it comes with being smart. You got to be smart. You got to have good football IQ. And what does that come with? Watch film. You might not watch. These guys don't watch football no more. They don't really tune in to really watch
football IQ.
But at the same time, like you said, you got YouTube. You have all this stuff. You know what? You need to be watching film, on your opponents. Watch film on high school football. If that's what area
the level you at.
Yeah. Watch. And you got to be smarter than that next man, and that comes with watching film. Watch film on yourself. Watch film again. Don't just watch you getting an interception or catching a ball or getting a good run. Watch film on you getting covered, or you not getting those yards or whatever, and you understand really what works, And it's a lot to ask of these kids now.
It is.
But I think I told you before, I didn't know how to really read defenses or read my offense, based on defenses until I got to the pros. And, Ernest Biner, he recognized it, and he asked me, he's like, hey, what you got on this? And I'm like, I don't know, really, because I, in college, I started as a freshman.
Yeah, give him the rock.
Coach Randy Sanders, was my running back coach, which later became offensive coordinator, great coach. And you know what he said straight up? He said, man, you're a freshman that's starting in the SEC for the University of Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Ain't nothing I can teach you right now. I don't want to. He really I don't want to mess nothing up.
No.
So if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Correct.
So he just said, take the ball and run like hell. So guess what? That was my mentality. That's what I had to do.
Hit that right there.
Yeah, but that's what happens, man, with a lot of guys, man. A lot of guys get caught up in that, and the coaches don't really coach them because they're so good. Mm-hmm. But they never get better.
Yeah.
And they never get better. They never get better because the coaches ain't coaching them because they're just talented and they're that good and they don't want to break it. But time tells, right? As you get older, guess what? As a running back, I got slower, right? I got slower. I wasn't as quick, right? But at the same time, what made me fast, what made me be able to compete with my second string, third string running backs that they was bringing in was the fact that, hey, I knew what the defense was doing. I knew where my offensive guy was going, so it made me faster. I didn't have to think about it.
Correct.
I just needed to go act, And these coaches will tell you, we don't pay you to think.
Exactly.
And we don't pay you to think. You know what I mean? I remember, a coach asking a player a question, and he said, well, I thought, coach was like, we don't pay you to think. We do the thinking. We do the thinking, and we provide the strategy and everything else. We pay you to go out and execute. Mm-hmm. So that's where it's at. You know what I mean? And that's just what it is. It'll pay you to think. You know what I mean? So that's why, hey man, you gotta know your assignment, your alignment, know your technique, and just be smarter, than your opponent. And that's that.
And that's food. That's good soul food and mental food for these athletes and parents. They need to hear these stories. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor and talk about briefly SHŌCASE Performance Nutrition. Shout out to Redefine Foods. That's an excellent resource you brought to the table there. Yeah. That's going to change the game.
Yeah, that's our contract manufacturer for our supplements. And, starting out, we're going to have protein, BCAAs, creatine. I think that, with those three things, that's what, a high school kid or youth athlete really needs. Protein. Just being able to, you got to load up on protein. These guys are working out, they're training all the time or whatever. They're burning a lot of calories. So you know what? You need to get that protein in so that you're not burning into that muscle, which really accelerates injury. So
correct.
If you cooking into that muscle, you're in a high chance of getting hurt.
Indeed.
And then the branched chain amino acids, fueling the muscles while you're working out, hydration while you're working out to help fuel those muscles while you're going. The creatine to help you, build that muscle.
Correct.
And keep that muscle long. Stay hydrated or whatever, but those are the three products that we're launching and that we're starting out with, to kind of help these guys that are trying to gain weight, lose weight, maintain. We got a product, these products I think will really help, along with eating though. You can't supplement eating, you know what I mean? You can't supplement
nutrients.
Eating. Yeah, you got to eat, man. You got to eat right.
Protein,
if you want to grow, if you want to grow, eat.
Correct.
Eat. Correct. I used to eat 7,500 calories. My chef, right, when I was playing in the league, when I could afford a chef, he told me basically if I burned about 3,000 to 4,000 calories a day.
Yeah.
And that's with training twice a day, you burning about 1,500 calories a session. So therefore, he used to make me eat 7,500 calories. And I'm like, chef, I can't eat all this. But he's like, eat as much as you can. Eat as much as you can. But you know what? I trained at 260 pounds. I trained at in the NFL. I trained at 260, played at 240.
Yeah.
And I remember coming into camp one year and coach, I came into OTAs, not camp, but OTAs. Coach was like, Ozzie, he was like, 260? He called me in his office to tell me this. He said, 260. And I said, yeah, what's wrong? He said, 260. And I was like, well, you looked at the film, right? I said, do I move like 260? He was like, no, but 260. But you know what? I trained at 260, man. I couldn't, I can't train at my playing weight. You know what I mean? Because I'm doing, I'm doing a morning session and then I'm doing a 3 p.m. session, right? So 2 times a day cooking. You know what I mean? Yep. 5 days a week. And even on the weekend doing some stuff or whatever. So, knowing that nutrition and eating and putting on those calories or whatever, especially in the off season, and then going into the season, I just break it down. Don't eat 7,500 calories going in. Shred back down. I would lose. I'll be down to 240 by the time we weighed in.
Correct.
During training camp.
Exactly.
And shoot, man, that's just what it was, and that's why eating is important, nutrition is important in keeping you healthy, and also just maintaining that, your physique and your body, your strength, your muscle, and everything else. And nowadays, and that was then.
Correct.
Now they got body scans.
Oh man, yeah.
They got all this stuff. You know what I mean? In order to know what their body fat is, know what the skeletal muscle is, know what all this is, like, so the tools are there. You just got to use them.
Exactly. Exactly. I think another key component about the partner with for the nutrition is the fact that they're only one of 4 ISO labs in the state of Georgia, and they manufacture all their product here. Yeah. So that's another high level of you know exactly what you're getting. Lab, it's made here, everything is contained. It ain't third party source moved around. So that increases the level of quality and the ingredients of the SHŌCASE Performance Nutrition as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. And it's just trusted product, you know.
Indeed.
And that's one of the reasons why we partner with them, because we know we're dealing with a youth market or whatever. And being that all of their stuff is patented, everything is tested, everything is there. We know what you're putting in your body or whatever is clean, is crisp. So that's why,
certified.
Yeah, NSF certified. So
love
that's
it.
why we're partnering with them, and it's going to be a good thing. And I think the kids will enjoy it.
Indeed.